And that happens in real life around here too, because I was on federal jury duty one time and they didn't have enough to fill the jury box, and the judge sent the U.S. Marshal downtown to bring somebody back, and this poor woman came back, she was white, just like a ghost. She thought she was going to jail because the U.S. Marshal had just grabbed her off the street and said, "Ma'am, I'm a U.S. Marshal, you're coming with me to the federal courthouse." This was here in Moscow. And, it is a small town. You talk about everybody knowing everybody, telling stories. I was helping select a jury one time in a case, and there was a woman on the jury panel who had applied for a position as a legal assistant in my office, and she didn't get the position, but, I thought, we'd be friendly and chatty and stuff, and said, "Oh yeah, I remember you applied for a job with our office. Sorry that didn't work out. Where are you working now?" And she said, "I'm unemployed." So you learn to screen your questions a little bit first. And there are folks who want to get out of jury duty. I remember Judge Stegner was not at all pleased with a local healthcare professional who's no longer around, who was just certain he was going to get off this jury panel. So he said everything outrageous he could to show that he was biased, he couldn't be a good juror, and the judge saw right through it. And then parked him in the back of the courtroom and made him sit there for the entire jury selection process, which consumed like a couple days, just to send in the message that, look, don't be a smarty with me in my courtroom. So it cuts all sorts of ways. Karen, you have a question?
Is there ever any discussion with you and your team about when to prosecute? I was on a jury of this, must have been a freshman at UI, and she had, I guess had something to drink back at the dorm or somewhere on the university campus, and then was riding in the back seat of this car that was stopped not for any reason that the car did anything wrong, but because she felt sick, she exploded out of the back seat to throw up in the street. And the cop who was in front of her came and then arrested her for underage drinking. And I was so mad. I wanted to say she was innocent, but of course she was an underage drinker. But it took so much time for everybody, for this poor young girl that just did something wrong and was throwing up and felt sick, and I'm sure she had an awful night, but then she had an awful week, and her parents had to come up with money and all this, and it seems like overkill.
Well, I can tell you, I really hope that was a city prosecutor's case.
I don't know.
And I don't recall us prosecuting a case like that, but yes, we review cases. We reject probably as many cases as we accept for prosecution. And most of that's, Deb's looking at me giving those funny faces. Deb she's a criminal defense lawyer, she used to be a criminal. Deb is one of our public defenders as well, Deb McCormick. But we reject a large number of cases before anybody ever sees them, before a courtroom ever sees them. Ashley knows that. Ashley's one of my deputies sitting beside Deb, moderating Deb's influence on the
keeping me under control.
Keeping her under control. And sometimes, sometimes an officer will make a charging decision that maybe wasn't the most prudent thing to do. Cops have discretion on the street. They're supposed to exercise it. Some exercise it better than others. Prosecutors have discretion. We can debate whether some exercise it better than others. We try to exercise our discretion fairly responsibly. But yeah, those are unfortunate situations. And that invites what is called jury nullification. Ray, have you encountered jury nullification situations?
I've never been able to make it work.
There's some lawyers who have a knack for being able to persuade the jury, look, my guy's guilty, but in all fairness, you really shouldn't find him guilty, type of thing. If that does happen, it's against the law, it's not supposed to happen. Deb's trying to think of ways to backdoor getting that to happen.
Sometimes it happens without you really asking them to do that. So,
And yes,
just because they think the case is stupid.
That's right. Or they have sympathy for the defendant. I remember a number of years ago, the Attorney General's office prosecuted a big drug case up here that the state police had investigated. The defendant represented himself. the jury not only acquitted him, but took him out for drinks afterwards. You know, and the way the case was handled, I guess the prosecutor kind of asked for that. You know, you have to be responsible to your constituents, and you're my constituents. Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to the, how individual either gets to choose whether they go in front of a judge or whether they have a jury trial? I don't quite understand how, and is that?
Great.
You have a right to a jury trial. You can waive that right and be tried by the judge alone, but the prosecutor has to agree to it.
Oh, so the prosecutor has to agree to it.
The defendant can request it, but the prosecutor has to agree to it.
Is that just civil cases or?
No, that's criminal cases.
Criminal.
If it requires jail time, right?
No.
No?
Doesn't have anything to do with it.
Oh, okay.
So how does that work? How do you?
I have used it a few times, requested that I not have a jury. And the criteria, from my perspective on that, is if I have a case where I know the jury is not going to like my client, and I think the state's case may have a weakness on one or two elements of the crime, and the jury would gloss over that, but the judge will make darn sure that there's sufficient proof on every element of the case. That's my criteria for going without a judge.
Well, I would think
I mean, without
anything
jury.
having to do with pedophilia or anything like that, that individual would always ask for a judge and not want a jury because they would think that the jury would say, absolutely not. You know, anything like that, they would vote no on it. So
Well,
doesn't that
the
predispose?
prosecutor would prevent that from getting by.
Well, you'd hope.
Wouldn't you?
Or, and I practiced criminal defense for 12 years before I became a prosecutor, so I've been on both sides of this. Sometimes we're just taking a chance that all we have to do is raise a question in one person's mind, and the worst that'll happen is we get a mistrial, and then the prosecutor has to figure out, okay, are they going to try this case again, or maybe can we negotiate a better resolution the second time? So there are those kinds of strategic decisions that are made. We had a murder case here a number of years ago, Bill Hagedorn, which was back in, what, 1994? Killed his girlfriend, Joanne Romero. The jury hung on the first trial, and second trial, the morning of jury selection, his attorney came in and said, my client says he wants to waive a jury, and we agreed, and so Judge Bingson heard the murder case and convicted him. Mr. Hagedorn, he was playing his odds. He thought he would have a better shot with the judge, and it didn't work out for him. But it happens.
My experience with mistrials has been that once the mistrial happens, negotiations become much easier.
They do. There's a
An
practicality
example,
to it.
years ago, I had a federal case up in Coeur d'Alene. I was representing a lady that worked at the casino, and she was accused of stealing a brick of money. She worked in the money room. And we went through the trial on that, and it hung. And a few weeks later, the federal prosecutor called me and said, if she will plead guilty to knowing that a crime was committed and not reporting it, no time, no fine, we jumped at it. But that can happen after hung jury.
I notice it's right at 1 o'clock, so if folks need to go, please do so. If you want to stay and visit a little bit longer, we're happy to do that as well. I did bring a stack of business cards. Since unlike Ray, who has individual clients, you are all my clients, our office's clients, here in the prosecutor's office. So please help yourself if you want one going out the door. If you want to email me directly, where it has the email that says PA@Latah, just change that to Bill B. Thompson at Latah, and it'll come straight to me. So please help yourselves.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming out. Thank you so much.